all sorts of great information about what's going on in Hanover and what's going on in Hanover and so forth. And again, welcome to the virtual attendees this morning also. As I mentioned before, the Chamber of Commerce Breakfast Series title sponsor is Village Bank, and I'd like to invite Amanda Porch up to take a few minutes to speak on behalf of Village Bank. Amanda, come on up.
Thank you. Village definitely welcomes the opportunity to sponsor this event, and we appreciate the Chamber and Chamber RVA for doing everything they could to make it happen virtually and in person. So it's nice to see some familiar faces and also do you guys on the computer. I know this year has been crazy for everybody, and most of you know it's definitely been crazy for banking. I'm going to give you a couple stats. Village was able to help 1,500 businesses with the PPP for $187 million. Of those, 145 were in Hanover. What I'm most proud about, though, and what we kind of heard from a lot of our customers was 846 of those loans were under $50,000. So, you know, we were really focused on trying to help the small businesses. 265 were under $100,000. Definitely a focus on the small business part of that. We are now in the fun part of the forgiveness with the SBA. I am really excited to say that we're actually seeing those funds come in from SBA already, which is a great thing. You know, I know a lot of customers were iffy about whether we would actually see that happen, no matter what they were telling us. So I'm glad to say we've actually had 126 loans completely forgiven and gotten in $18 million. And that's just the tip of the iceberg because we really just started that process. Speaking of small business, please consider joining Village Bank on Small Business Saturday. We will be hosting with a fellow chamber member at Little Bean Coffee in Mechanicsville, a cash mob. So the first 50 people get $5 to spend on coffee. And we will also have 3 nonprofits for you to vote on. And one nonprofit will receive $250 from Village Bank, and Little Bean has offered to match that. So the second nonprofit will also receive $250. So Small Business Saturday, for those you don't know, is November the 28th. So 1 to 3, come out to Little Bean and support Village, support Little Bean and small business.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. Also this morning, I'd like to take just a minute to thank some special guests that we have here, both in person and in virtual. And I'm not sure if I'm going to miss anybody in virtual. Obviously, I don't know exactly who's on, but in person here today, I'd like to just recognize Mr. Wayne Hazard, previous supervisor of the South Anna District, and we appreciate him being here this morning. So thank you, Wayne. Also, Mr. Alan Abbott, Planning Commission member of the Ashland District. Thank you, Alan, for being here this morning. Our school superintendent, Dr. Michael Gill, is here with us this morning also. Thank you, Dr. Gill. From the town of Ashland, we got Mayor Steve Trivett here virtually. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, he's here, not virtually. And virtually, we have the Vice Mayor, John Hodges, is here virtually with us also. Sorry, Steve. I do see you now, so we're good. Anyway, and then from the Hanover County Board of Supervisors, we might have Mr. Michael Herzberg, who is here with us today also. And lastly, we were told that Sean Davis is here virtually. Hopefully he is on with us. And Sean, the good news about Sean and being virtual, he's not allowed to talk. So we're good. I'm just kidding, Sean, if you're there. But anyway, we can shorten the program up a little bit.
Well, somebody gave a thumbs up.
Is that right? That is good. That is good. That's another thing about being virtual, is that you can say things like that and not take too much heat. So anyway, this morning we really truly have the privilege of having a county update from our county administrator and economic development director. There'll be trading offs who's speaking, so I'm going to do my best to introduce them separately. And again, I promised both of them I wouldn't go. They sent me basically a page and a half each, kind of single spaced of what I'm supposed to read. But I'm going to go, if it's okay with you, and virtual world and 2020 aspects. I'm going to try to shorten it up a little bit. First of all, Linwood Thomas has just been, I say this in all sincerity, I can speak all these words about his background, what he's done, and what the credentials that he has, but literally, he is someone that his actions speak much further than the words that I read. So thank you for being here this morning with us, Linwood. Thank you very much. I think y'all agree it's a lot better than me reading that whole thing right there, right? Okay.
Me too.
And John, welcome back. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than welcome back. As y'all may know, John was here at the second tenure of Hanover County, started July 1st here. The Board of Supervisors appointed him on March 25th. John had worked previously in Hanover, went to Goochland for a few years as the county administrator, and we're just so fortunate to have him back. Well, without further ado, I'd like for John and Linwood to come on up and entertain us with their show. So who's going? Come on.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It is so wonderful to be with a group of folks in person here this morning, as well as the folks that are Zooming. I think we have up to 80 people Zooming and 25 here in the room. We know folks have had to pivot and change. That has been our entire past 6 months, right? And so today you're going to hear a lot about some things that have been challenges for us, but you're going to hear a lot of great news. I got to tell you, I am personally extremely proud to come back to Hanover. Been a resident of Hanover for 10 of the past 15 years. To get the support of the Board of Supervisors and come back and work with such a great leadership team in this community has really been the honor of my professional career. And so I'm excited to be back. One thing you will never see again today after this picture is my picture in these presentations like this. Todd, thank you for forgoing my resume. Hopefully the Board of Supervisors hired someone with the right education and credentials. Part of the reason I show this is when I came back to Hanover, those of you that worked with me before know I didn't have a beard. And so the first picture I said to Tom, I didn't have a beard on. He goes like, John, I got to take another picture. You don't want to recognize you. And so Tom put this in here, and I want to thank Tom for all his help and leadership from our PIO office in this presentation. Usually when I go out and people ask me my resume, I just tell them two things. I'm Emily and Evan's dad. That's the most important thing to me. We all do the work that we do for our families, hopefully, and in public service, we do this to make the communities we serve a little better tomorrow than we found them today. That's about half my work. The other half is making sure I don't screw up all that makes everything about Hanover so wonderful. And so that's what I do with a team. You'll very rarely hear me focus on it really is a team. Working with Linwood has been a pleasure. We have a great leadership team. I have to say, thank goodness I worked in Hanover prior. Coming back, even the folks I knew, I didn't really recognize them all from here up. And so coming back into a community and trying to make connections, we are in the people business. We are in the business of public service. In fact, this is a lifestyle for many of us. And so we really take a lot of pride in the work that we do with our community. A lot of what we do is based on building public trust, making sure that you believe that your local government's doing things in your interest and the community's interest. But we do this together. I know a number of you serve on boards and commissions and committees and nonprofits in our community. This is a team effort. Making a community better and stronger is a team effort. And particularly our business community. And all of those of you that are here with the Hanover Chamber RVA, thank you for what you do each and every day, your advocacy, your work, the services you deliver to our community on each and every day makes Hanover a better community. And we know that we're all struggling. I'm going to start right off the bat talking about COVID here this morning. Obviously, COVID has changed the way we all live and do our business. Interesting fact, I was interviewed the Monday before we declared the regional emergency for COVID. March 13th was the COVID regional emergency announcement. You can see all the folks up here from all the regional jurisdictions. That also was when the governor declared the emergency on behalf of the Commonwealth. we all had to basically do exactly what many of you did. We had to pause our businesses. We had to reinvent our businesses. We had to figure out how we do business different in the time of COVID. From the local government perspective, I'm extremely proud. We literally shut our doors for one day. We sanitized and reworked our entire business model from how we deliver services. We've been working and in our offices really since that one day we took off, and trying to figure out how can we continue to provide our services. What you're going to hear today is some really good news. Despite all the challenges of COVID, there's a lot of great things going on in Hanover. There are a lot of really good things that we in Hanover have the benefit of that some of our regional entities do not have. The one thing I did realize as we were going through this presentation, and often when we're talking to the business community, we're out trying to make sure you understand how things are going in our community and what indicators are and those kinds of things. What I think is important to recognize as we go through this presentation, what's not really in here are the folks that are really, really struggling through COVID. There are folks that have lost jobs. There are businesses that may never return. And so even though some of the statistics here still look good for Hanover from a business support and attraction and retention kind of position, there are some folks in our community that are really, really struggling. And so this is a different kind of financial period of time for us. Those of us that lived through the housing crisis, that kind of recession is different than what we're going through today. Those of us that were around and working through the recession that came after 9/11, this is a different recession in many different ways. So I don't want to minimize the challenge that some members and some businesses are going through in our community, but we do also have some good news to share. One of the things that I'm really proud of, and we do well as a region, we do it with our town partners. We have a really good Richmond region partnership. I think our response to COVID has been better as a region because we work together. We've been able to get PPE together. We've been able to learn best practices. Our public safety folks cross-train and regionally coordinate. There are a lot of things as a community that we've been able to step up and do and really help make Richmond region safer and healthier. And that work has a lot of legs left under it because we don't know how long we will be dealing with this, but we do recognize that it's not just your local government, it's everybody in our community. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those kinds of things. So what did it mean for us? I think many of you know that between us and the schools, we have about 5,000 employees. We're over a business of about $400 million annually. And so for us, if you remember, March 13th was when we actually declared the emergency. We already had the county budget done. We were on a track to have the highest year of revenue collection in recent history on a percentage basis, and certainly our largest budget. And immediately, we adopt our budget early April. March 13th, it was pretty much in the can and ready to go. In a matter of weeks, we had to pivot and change our entire budget. Just like our businesses and just like our families, we had to do the same. Hanover County is generally reliant on personal property taxes and real estate taxes as our primary sources of revenue. Sales tax is also an issue. Our friends and partners at Kings Dominion, think about them. They haven't been able to open to date this year. They have been a major contributor to taxes for us and sales taxes and those kinds of things. We had to take into consideration, but I tell you what, we were lucky. From a local government standpoint, March 13th is we're beginning quarter number 4 for us. So if we're relying on property taxes, most of the people paid into escrow, about 50% of the property taxes in Hanover are paid in your mortgage escrow. Other 50% people come in and pay on their own. People had already had that money escrowed and paid. And so as we look at projecting this out, we have to think about how's COVID going to impact us from a service delivery budget standpoint, not just last fiscal year as we ended. And by the way, we ended better than we projected, but what's it mean for this year and subsequent years? Also, if you remember during the last quarter, the economy was bolstered by supplement checks from the federal government. Folks were getting $600 more and some of that helped pay some of the bills. That is not going on anymore. So what's that mean for our fall tax collection rates and what does it mean for next spring? We're really looking at this in the long run. So Hanover's known to be a conservative community financially, and we continue that practice and it's put us in a pretty good position. But we had to cut $10 million basically in a week out of our proposed budget. And so that meant we basically froze all of our positions, cut operating budgets, suspended some capital. But that's no different than what our business community has had to do or our residents. Also, we also have been administering about $22 million of CARES Act funds from the federal government that came through the state. In some ways, this has been a real blessing for us because we were able to take care of some needs. But just like the federal government, they give you some really good constraints. They said, we don't think COVID's going to go away by December 30th, but you have to spend all this money by December 30th. And so we, under CARES Act, we had to give the town, based on population, a share of that fund. Hanover made a conscious decision to invest in our public schools during this time. About half the funds on the county side went into school investments, the other half on the county side, more on public safety and other CARES qualified expenditures. On top of our day jobs, we had to administer all the projects between July and the end of December under the CARES Act. But some of the areas that I'm most proud of is the two, and certainly both chambers stepped up and helped support the business community. I'm proud that we've given almost $300,000 to small businesses in our community, helped a large number of small businesses, employees, women, minority-owned businesses. This was a program that, with your advocacy and support, the board supported that program. The United Way has partnered with us. You know, a lot of folks, I talked about those earlier on, who are struggling to make ends meet and just make sure they can keep a roof over their head, get their next meal. About $500,000 went into resilience programming for housing and rental support, food needs, and utility kinds of support. And those are being administered by a number of Hanover not-for-profits, some of which I know some of you are tied into, and we're really proud of those partnerships. But there are folks struggling in our community. We wanted to make sure we were taking care of those needs. Sales tax was one of those indicators that we really thought the bottom was going to fall out, right? No one was going to retail stores in the spring. We really had some major concerns that we were going to see a drop off here. We weren't sure if Kings Dominion was going to be able to open. We actually got pleasantly surprised, and there was two reasons we got pleasantly surprised. I told you, we operate on a fiscal year of July 1 to June 30th. Last fiscal year, we were on track for the highest sales tax collections on record. And so COVID hits, we adjusted and adopted a budget that was almost $2 million less in collections. And that's part of being conservative. You want to make sure that you're not over budgeting and can't hit your targets. But we're now forecasting that we're actually going to collect about 24.5. And so why is that? There's two reasons. Hanover County, up until last year, did not collect internet sales tax. It just happened to be the year that internet sales went through the roof, we got our first distribution of internet sales tax. And so that really did help position us well. But we didn't budget it back then because we usually budget on things that have 2 or 3 years trends. And we didn't have a trend on internet sales tax, so we didn't budget. So that actually bailed us out. The other thing bailed us out is all of you that went and hoarded toilet paper and sanitizer and all those kinds of things. Grocery store revenues went through the roof. And you know, those kinds of things helped us with the sales tax. This is important for a number of reasons. Sales tax helps support our public education. Sales tax helps now, if you're familiar with the new Central Virginia Transportation Authority, there's a portion of the funds that will come back to us. That's based on our sales tax collection. As that drops, it may impact school funding, transportation funding, and general services ability to fund services. You know, one of the things that people come up and ask me is why do you keep recruiting new residential developments in Hanover County? And the good news is I can tell you, I don't have to go recruit any new residential developments in the county. The only recruitment we do is Linwood goes and tries to get businesses to expand and attract new businesses. But for all the same reasons you love Hanover, other people see this as a destination and people are making investments. Actually in 19 was really our highest residential building permits side of things. But as you can see, even in 20, we were sort of on trend with 17 and 18, a little by it, and we're already surpassing that this year. And so unlike these other recessions, the housing market, we're not seeing the same problem. And so days on market, those of you that are realtors or work with realtors, try to sell your house, this is a great time, right? Values are up. We're actually seeing assessments go up. This is not something you typically see in a recession. The values of homes are strong, the resales are strong, and the median price of homes actually is up. The median home sales price last year was $422,000. And there's a couple factors for that. Most of the new homes are selling at higher price points. We had seen resales go out, so there is some real value in the housing market. That's why there's interest here, but that's why there's reasons people are either moving within or to Hanover. I have to tell you that those of you that are tied into other regional groups, I've seen more people moving to Hanover from like New York and Boston and other areas. I talked to a realtor the other day. He said he sold 3 houses sight unseen in the past 6 months. And so the market is still very strong. This is not typically a recession indicator that you would see happening. And so that's a plus. But this is a plus from the standpoint of if you're selling a house or if you're looking for a new house. The challenge is if you have a kid that wants to move to Hanover or someone that can't afford that house at that medium price point, there is product out there, but is there enough? That's the one complaint I do hear is that there's folks that, if I'm selling, I love this. But if I want my kid to move here, I'm not buying them a $422,000 house. And so there's other folks that are struggling with that price point as well. But from a pure economic indicator standpoint, that's a good thing. Broadband. I see Scott's in here from our broadband committee. People ask me, what's the number one question you get on a daily basis? And you would think it's, things like Wegmans and school names and all those kinds of interesting things. It's broadband. It's when am I getting reliable broadband service to my home? And as you can imagine, COVID's exacerbated this issue for us as a county. It's an issue for all rural counties. I do want to tell you I have some hope in this frontier because it is an area that we do need to address. Our broadband committee had worked for over a year. In December, we're presenting a blueprint to broadband for Hanover County to get our problems solved to the Board of Supervisors. We also just entered a partnership with Comcast and CenturyLink. If we get those grants, about 1,800 additional Hanoverians will get reliable broadband service. And by the way, we use the definition the FCC uses, not if you have a hotspot or a cell phone, that does not qualify. If you have any, the typical CenturyLink non-fiber connections, that wouldn't even qualify. And so we're working on this. Also, as I speak with you, we have an RFP out on the street for a third-party provider to come in and expand services in Hanover County right now. And so those close, I believe, some point in December. I am very hopeful that we're going to see more options and services for our residents. I will tell you though, this is it's not a fast-moving ship. To get internet expanded to all of our residents is going to take some time. We're actually in this RFP that we have out in the street. We're looking for 2 things. Everyone would prefer a hard line to your home, right? That's what you're used to. You prefer. We're going to do a plan that has hard lines, and we're going to do a plan that meshes wireless into it as well. And so my hope is over the next 12, 24, 36 months, we're going to see some real movement for our residents in this area. You will see this slide at every state of the county from here forward, because these are our priorities, local government, counties in particular. We're built on 3 main priorities and then supplemented by everything else. Public education, public safety, and health and human services is really where, if you look at our budget, this is where we make our investments. Education is almost 50% of the county budget. And so as we look at education, we think of the priorities. We should be very proud, Dr. Gill and his team. We have the 3rd highest graduation rate in the Commonwealth. All accredited schools. We were one of 10 schools that allowed parent choice. I have 2 students against their will, apparently, that are back in school today. And I will tell you that this has been a very difficult choice for parents. It's been a very difficult choice for teachers. But you have to respect both decisions. If I would choose to educate my child virtually, I so choose. If I choose to put them into the in-school setting, I so choose. It has not been easy. And I, for one, am very proud of the work the school system have done, basically having to pivot that same business model like we all had to in matters of months. And we all continue to learn each and every day. So hopefully we make those services better tomorrow than they were yesterday. But Hanover is looked at amongst the region of how did you do it? How did you work your way through that? And just as a parent, I'm proud colleague of our school system. And I know they're working hard. I tell Mike almost regularly that there are days that I am super glad that I'm not a school superintendent. And I really gratefully appreciate he and his team's work. Public safety. It goes without saying in a time of a pandemic and an emergency that public safety folks, these guys, while we closed for one day, they've never stopped. They've been putting in substantially more hours, operating their businesses differently, on the front lines of folks that have COVID, not just in our community, but if you think about our nursing homes and our jail facilities and other areas that have seen outbreaks or issues in our community, these folks are the first ones there. We have one of the safest communities in the Richmond region. We have one of the most capable workforces in fire and EMS and sheriff duties and responsibilities. I'm extremely proud. What this doesn't also show is all those folks that are answering those 911 calls and all those folks that are supporting. If you think about right now, non-traditional public safety has really grown for us. Those folks that are familiar with the Community Services Board and mental health services and substance abuse services, there's a reason alcohol is at its all-time sales peak, because my kids are back in school. People are challenged with this right now, and it is issues that we're serving as a community, and it's together. It's the not-for-profit community. It's all of those in government working together. Extremely proud of the public safety teams. Proud, you know, in that picture on the left there, you see the sheriff being recognized by the VFW. We also consistently, you may know the Valor Awards, if you've ever heard of that, in Richmond each year, hosted by Retail Merchants. Hanover is consistently recognized each year for some of the efforts that we go to in response of our citizens, and we're very proud of those individuals that do that work. Human Services. You may be familiar with DASH program. This was, you know, rolled out last year. We've had over 200 people take benefit of this service. We've also delivered about 1,500 trips, and that includes during COVID. And so DASH has been a new program for us. Some of our residents are really challenged with transportation. This program has sort of been a lifeline for them. I'm excited to see what we can do in times to come. But DASH program has been a really great partnership for our community and really an asset that I think we'll see grow. But what I'm really proud of is, you know, if you think back, you know, we're right now, we just got through, well, I think we're through election, who knows? But it's a very divisive time in our communities and the nation right now. You think back after 9/11, you remember how excited this country was? People were coming together, neighbors were helping neighbors, there were flags everywhere, there was pride, there was community pride. Not that we ever want an event like that, but we are at our very best sometimes when we're responding to emergencies. And to see this community come together during the pandemic is really an area of pride. We've had, you know, there's a lot of folks that you may or may not see each and every day that they're reliant on that food bank or that church to provide a distribution, or how are they going to keep their utility bills on. And we have had folks step up. Young ladies here sold bracelets to support our the ACES program. Just a number of folks, food distribution and different amenities that are available. And just really proud of this community and proud to be a part of it. Just last week, you know, how many of you knew this was our 300th birthday year? We're not giving up on that yet. November 26th is actually the date that we will celebrate our official birthday this year. There were a couple legacy projects. The Love Sign with our Youth Services Council was one of the projects. We're rolling out a Hanover History Museum down in the old Clerks building, but we are not giving up. Next year is our 300th and counting birthday. We're all hoping, we'd all hoped that on November 4th, COVID was going away, but we're hoping we're gonna be able to have some in-person activities next year and really celebrate 300 years. And it's a milestone that we're very proud of. And this project in particular, to see the kids really get behind our public safety folks. I think we all know what the tomato is, but Hanover People, Spirit, and Traditions, our tagline, and then our public educators. And these kids did a great job on this project. I'm going to talk just about a few other capital projects that we did in the past year. Atlee Library, if you hadn't had a chance to get down to the new Atlee Library off the 301, It is really, one of the new buildings of pride for us as a community. It's a great space. There's a lot of individualized meeting rooms and pull-up rooms, but that is a project that we're very proud of. Just dedicated that a few months back. I think many of you know, back when I was here my first time, I helped build the existing courts building, which is the new courts building. We had two buildings that opened up after that, which was our old courts building, our circuit court building and our district court building. About 2 years ago, we opened up the Vaughn Bradley building, which houses our treasurer, commissioner, revenue, finance department, and internal audit. But I had the pleasure to actually come into this renovation in its final stages. And this building was named after Martha Ann Fields. Those of you that don't know Martha Ann Fields' story and how she was an enslaved individual that fled nutshell, the whole history there. But I'll tell you, if you have a chance and you want to be inspired, go back and listen to the dedication and hear the Fields family talk about their family. The folks that you see in this picture, some of them were and they're generations of Fields, just met themselves at this event. And all in respect to Martha Ann, but that story is really inspirational and proud that we've been able to dedicate that building in their honor. A couple road projects. This one may have taken a little longer than we had all hoped, but if you're down in this particular corridor, really proud of this one. Was a little more challenging, trying to maintain operations for these businesses and do all the roundabout, but that one is coming to completion. We're proud of that project. Sliding Hill, those of you that live up through that corridor or go through that corridor, these pictures are a little old. They're actually in final paving right now, and hopefully if it stops raining, we'll get this project done in the weeks to come. Bull Green Road. Any of you that either live in this corridor, work in this corridor, or have tried to get your kid to soccer practice at 5:30, you'll really appreciate this project, and it's long overdue. But we're now in the design phase of Bull Green Road. So if you have thoughts or comments of how you would envision this is the time to get that feedback in. We have plans to take Atlee Station. So if you know where we did the flyover or the bridge over the train, all the way up to the most southern King's Charter entrance is scheduled to be 4-lane. And Route 360, this project's been in the works for a little while. If you know where they stopped at sort of the Taco Bell Creek entrance, this will actually take you down beyond Lee Davis Road. And actually go up Lee Davis almost to Calabash and down behind the Tractor Supply. So there should be some more road improvements that you'll see coming in the years to come on these particular corridors. We just dedicated a new airport terminal on our east side. So if you're actually passing the end of the runway, you can see a brand new building that sits up there. That's actually Luck Company's hangar. We are building a new terminal building for that side. This is actually, you can see Luck from the rear side that you can't see from the road there, but that'll give some more opportunities for that east side business investment. The airport is really for those corporate planes that come and land and look to make investments in here, but that's the first thing they see. And so we're proud to support this in the business community there. Talked earlier, we're not out recruiting residential, but it's coming and it's here. And we're seeing some quality investments. These are just some of the projects that are moving through the pipeline now under construction. There's more under consideration over time. But you'll see these going on throughout our community. And they are bringing, there's some different kinds of product and price point. And a lot of these are in our suburban services area. I showed you a chart earlier about building upstarts. Most of the new development is where we plan the new development. And so that's consistent. By the way, our growth rate every once in a while, people will come up to me and say, we're exploding in growth. And I always ask them, well, help me appreciate what percent you think we're growing. It's 7, 8, 9%. That's what I hear. And would you believe it's averaged between 1 and 2%? Our comp plan, we actually design a comprehensive land use plan that has us targeted for growth in that 2% range. We have been under it consistently. And so that means we can support our services and keep up with our capital infrastructure. So here's why I switch over and give you the much more articulate and handsome part of the presentation. But I really do have to say Linwood and the team he's built and working with the Collective County team has been a pleasure for myself personally. Our business community is honored to have you and your service, and just appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And he's going to share some really great news with you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the kind remarks, and thank you for having me this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think I heard a few virtual good mornings as well. Let me just say, I have to get this out of the way. There are a few people I need to recognize and thank very quickly. I want to thank Melissa and Marianne at the Chamber for all they do to support our initiatives, not just today, but throughout the year. I want to thank Brian Anderson. I know he wanted to be with us with Chamber RVA this morning, but he was not feeling well. So we told him to stay home. I wanted to give him a virtual shout out as well. Want to thank Jack Berry with Richmond Region Tourism and his team for all they do to support us throughout the year. Also want to recognize my team. They make me look good year in and year out, and I want to thank them for all they do. And then lastly, the Board of Supervisors and our EDA. I do know we have one new EDA member here this morning. I wanted to recognize Mr. Trey Hayden. Trey, thanks for being with us. Look forward to you serving on our EDA as well. I say this every year, economic development is a team sport. We can do nothing without a strong team, and we really are just a catalyst, and then we need to get out of the way and let that growth take place. As I move through the slides today, what I want you to know is I'm going to try to extrapolate some data different from years past, because we typically track data by calendar year or fiscal year, but I'm going to try where I have data sets to show you where we are today, because I think it's important as we move through the pandemic to see where we've been and where we're going. And lastly, for those who would like to check it out, our annual report, there's a link at the bottom for those who have hard copies of your slides. Please check that out. We use that not just to sit on a shelf, but I told the Board of Supervisors at our most recent annual report update that we use that as a marketing piece to showcase Hanover County to site consultants and brokers and developers. So I'm very proud of that. So let's jump right in. This first slide shows total taxable assessed values, and it breaks it out by agriculture, commercial, and residential properties. And as you could probably surmise, we've seen a healthy, consistent growth pattern in all three categories. But I think it's important that we break that out, because really our bailiwick is in that commercial space. So I wanted to give you some context around the growth that's taking place in this area. Very proud to note that over the last 5 years, we've seen a 15% increase in our total assessed taxable values in the commercial space. But more importantly, and we track this by calendar year, from January 1 of 2019 to January 1 of 2020, we saw a 5% increase alone. Now, let's be honest, a major driver of that is the economy. The economy is strong, but we'd like to think, through the support of the Board of Supervisors and EDA and many others, that we've been able to drive economic development projects to Hanover County. And a lot of those, as you drive around Hanover, are being developed. So these properties are going on the tax rolls and being taxed. So I'd like to think that we've played a small role in this process over the last 4 or 5 years, most specifically the last year. To give you a snapshot of our vacancy rates by property class, a few things jump out to me. They may jump out to you. You look at our office segment at 6.9% and say, well, office has struggled. Office is struggling through the pandemic. And we track this data through, this data has been tracked through June of 2020. So this is moving through the pandemic. The reason I can tell you that office market is at 6.9% and continues to decline is we don't have a lot of Class A general office, but we have a lot of medical office. So that medical office is mainly full, and as soon as they build it, it's being taken down. So I believe that medical offices help sustain us through this pandemic. Another one that should jump out to you, that jumps out to me, is retail. Retail, in my opinion, should be around 4 or 5% easily right now. But the database that we track from CoStar notes that right now these leases are still in place. That does not mean people aren't struggling. That does not mean they're trying to hold on to their businesses, but it does mean those leases are still in place. I think we need 6 to 8 more months and maybe longer to deduce what our retail market looks like. The other portion of that is that we are not as predicated on retail as some of the larger localities, so we don't have as much of it. Those of you who have followed the state of the county for the last 3 or 4 years always hear me harp on our low industrial vacancy rates. And over the last 2 or 3 years, I continue to tell you we've got a 0.6% industrial vacancy rate. We've got a 0.7% industrial vacancy rate. This year, we have a 0.8% industrial vacancy rate. But you said, but Linwood, 2 years ago, the board, and I know Mr. Hazard was on the board when they supported our speculative building program, we have a lot of development coming out of the ground. Well, what we're finding is the properties are still being leased up before they're completed. Now, I tracked this data through the end of October. I can tell you we do have a 3.1% vacancy rate in the industrial market as of October. And that's because some of these buildings I'm going to show you in a minute are only 50% occupied before the construction is completed and not 100%. But I never thought I'd say this, but a little bit of vacancy in that sector is good because I have a place to put prospects at this point. So it's not all bad news. Unemployment and labor force data. I'll start with unemployment. And I thought it would be good to go back as we track calendar year to see where we were before the pandemic started. Unemployment rates continue to be at all-time lows in Hanover. And at the end of 2019, we had a 2.4% unemployment rate. Okay, that's great, Lemma, but what does it look like during the pandemic? Well, it spiked at 8.9% in May. And in the last 6 months, it has come back down to 4.4% in Hanover. By most Federal Reserve economists, a 4.1 to a 4.7% unemployment rate is considered full employment. So again, not discounting that there's some industry sectors struggling significantly, we are back to what most would consider full employment. Now, again, can't tell you what the next 6 to 8 months holds. We hope a vaccine will help in many regards. But again, right now, full employment. Our labor force through the end of 19 was going gangbusters. We added 1,500 to our labor force. Now, for those of you who don't know, our labor market is constituted of those who are 15 years to 64 years of age, those who are not disabled, retired, or full-time students. So we grew in that category significantly. It doesn't equate directly to net new jobs, but I'll show you some correlation here in a moment. You always hear me talk about adding jobs. That's part of what we do, including increasing the tax base and supporting our small business community. But really cool data here. Look at the last 5 years. We've increased our annual average wages by almost 20%, which is on average almost a 4% growth rate in those annual average wages. I'm proud of that. Now, last year, from 18 to 19, we only had a little less than a 3% growth rate. And I can tell you why. We're adding a lot of warehousing and logistics jobs that don't pay quite as much. But as we continue to drive new projects to the county that pay higher wages in that space, that's going to increase because a rising tide is going to lift all ships in that segment because there's not enough labor force. So it's going to drive competition, which is a good thing. I will tell you from 17 to 18, we had our largest jump, which was about 8.5%. And that's because that year we saw a lot of new healthcare jobs in Hanover County. Some people always ask me, what is the most difficult part of doing economic development in Hanover County? And it's like this in many localities, but it's site readiness and infrastructure. To be competitive, we have to have those things. When I took over 4 years ago, we had about 1,500 acres of zoned economic development property that was a tier 3 or above. Well, what does that mean? A tier 1 is a piece of dirt, no infrastructure, no studies, and not zoned. A tier 5 pad ready site through Virginia Business Sites Readiness Program is a pad ready site, zoned, ready to put a shovel in the ground. Our goal is to move these sites from a 1 or a 2 to a 3 or a 4. And what we're finding over the last 4 years is we can get them to a 3 or a 4, they're being taken down. So through our efforts in conjunction with the board, we have lost about 800 of those acres. So we only have about 600 acres left. Now, last year I came to you and I told you we had added 1,100 acres in our suburban services area, in areas we've determined we want to grow, to our queue. But most of those properties are a 1 or a 2. And for them to be competitive, then we need to get them to a 3 or a 4. Developers want us to eliminate risk. So we do that through investing in studies. And some of these properties that I've had listed here, we've done traffic impact analysis, wetlands delineations, geotechnical work. The more risk you can eliminate and the higher tier you can move these properties, the more competitive we can be. So this is an area we need to continue to work on as these properties are taken down. I told you about our speculative building initiative. And over the last 2 years, we've added over 1 million, oh, that jumped on me, I'm sorry. We've added over 1 million square feet of new space that's either being developed or developed coming out of the ground right now. And most of that space, as I told you, is almost leased up. We've got a little bit more than 50% of these projects right now leased up. And I've got a pipeline of another 1.5 million square feet of speculative space that we hope to develop between 2021 and 2022. For those of you who don't know, speculative development is very risky for the developer itself because they're building a building on the come and betting that someone's going to take that building down. But Hanover County and the Richmond region is seeing a lot of that. You're not seeing it all over the state. So this market is prime currently for speculative development, and Hanover is reaping the benefits from that. I could tell you over the last 3 years that we've written close to $700 million in performance agreements, and that's great. Last year, we had $230 million in new announcements, and that's great. I can tell you that we had 87 new announcements and business expansions over the last year, which equates to an increase of 35%. And we're putting those into a pipeline, but they're never done until the doors open. So we'd like to think that we're moving in the right direction, but really the true litmus test of how we measure development is through our commercial construction permits. Don't want to discount the announcements, building the pipeline, but this is where we really track the true measure of our success. From 19 to 20, we had a 13% increase in commercial construction permits. Now we track this by fiscal year. So this is through the end of June in the middle of a pandemic. We had $61.4 million in commercial construction permits pulled. That's the highest year we've ever had on record. And this doesn't even count the new announcements that we've had. The largest increase by year was 16 to 17. But again, we have a very strong year, and hopefully over the next few years as we build this pipeline, we'll continue to see this segment grow. Net new jobs in all industries at the end of 19 was the second largest year we had on record. Last year was our largest year. Now this was before the pandemic. Let's fast forward to tell you where we are today. At a 4.4% unemployment rate, we did have a contraction in our labor market of about 2,000. So that looks like a net negative almost for the jobs that we added in 2019. That's not all bad. We thought that we could be at an 8 or a 9% sustained unemployment rate for a significant period of time. So I would consider that a win. The year isn't out, and we'll see what the outcome is of the data points that we collect early in 2021. But again, not as bad as we potentially anticipated. What I'm equally proud of through 19 is we added almost 8,000 jobs in the last 5 years. 8,000 net new jobs would put us in the top 6 or 7% of all communities across Virginia during that same time frame regarding net new jobs. Pretty significant. John mentioned Wegmans. We've gotten a lot of questions and calls on Wegmans. It's been a unique project to say the least. I will just say this. It has received all the necessary local approvals. Board of Supervisors, Planning Commission, EDA. They're still waiting to get their permits, water control at the State Water Control Board for their wetlands delineation, their wetlands permit. If they receive that, and we hope to have an answer sometime in early January of 2021, this project is not a bad project overall. It will create 700 jobs. This is also a middle office play, which doesn't get talked about a lot. And you're seeing a lot of companies now adding their middle office and warehousing logistics and combining those in some suburban markets. So I think this is a trend that's going to continue. These 700 jobs on average will pay 20% higher than our annual average wage. So these aren't bad jobs. This will also, if final approvals are received at the state, will be one of our top 5 largest taxpayers in the county when it's said and done. So overall, I think a good project. Some of our most recent other business announcements: Memorial Regional Medical Center this year announced the $52 million vertical 44-bed expansion project that will also come with at least 100 new healthcare jobs. These are high-paying jobs. We don't love the tax model from Virginia ABC and the Virginia Department of Forensic Science. Let me say this: we don't get the real estate benefit from the real estate taxes. But what I will say is we've gotten some more data on the jobs, and John talks about sales tax. We'll reap the benefits from that. ABC, 500 jobs, 400 of those are office executive jobs. There's only 100 warehouse jobs because it's so automated. Combined, on average, these jobs pay 18% higher than our annual average wages. The State Forensics Lab, on average, pays $75,000 plus per job. That's 40% higher than our annual average wages. So these are a good story overall, and I think we'll reap the benefits from an economic development perspective, because trickle-down economics is a powerful thing. Not every announcement is a brick and mortar announcement. I love to focus, and I know Dr. Gill is here, on connecting the dots with academia and Main Street. Anton Parr this past year rolled out an apprenticeship program, and Devco North America rolled out an internship program. And I do know that local Hanover high school students are taking advantage of some of these programs, along with Randolph-Macon college students and other colleges in the Richmond region. So pretty cool story in itself as well. Some of our other business expansions over the last year, Endevco North America announced a $15 million expansion and 40 new jobs over the next 4 years. What's cool about this project, you talk about companies being ingenious. They have been siphoning water off of their roof to hold in a holding pond for the last 10 years plus for their non-potable water needs, and had been trucking in water for their potable water needs because they didn't have municipal water. They were not going to be able to stay in Hanover County if we couldn't get them a water line. And thanks in large part due to the board's leadership, we were able to get that extended. If they would have left, I would have had a hard time marketing that property without the necessary infrastructure in place. So a pretty cool project. ChemTreat finalized their $10 million water treatment laboratories in the air park. Not a huge number of net new jobs, but $10 million is a pretty nice project. I call that a base hit. We'll take them all day long. And Wine and Beer Supply. Cool story here. They were not going to stay in Hanover if we did not have a place to put them. Our first speculative building that they developed, they took down a third of that, which is right across the street from Creative along Lake Ridge Parkway. They would have had to go to another locality, and they were a local Hanover-based company that wanted to stay in Hanover. So pretty cool story in itself. The work that I'm always most proud of, John talks about it, I talk about it, is the work we do in the business community. And we do that in conjunction with our partner at the Chamber and the Richmond Region Chamber. We thank them for their efforts over the last year. I will say this, when the pandemic hit, within 1 week, we had a website up with federal, state, and local resources. That website to date has seen more traffic in the last 6 months than we had seen on any of our other hits on our website over the last 2 years. So we have driven traffic there. People are getting the resources that they need. We also worked in conjunction with Chamber RVA and the local Hanover Chamber to roll out our PPE kit initiatives. Over 200 businesses in Hanover and the town of Ashland were able to receive PPE kits in large part thanks to their support. Melissa worked alongside us and her team, along with Brian Anderson and the team at Chamber RVA, so we thank them. Some local businesses also helped. I know Owens and Minor made some significant in-kind contributions to our PPE kits, and so we're very grateful for their efforts as well. We didn't stop doing business interviews. We had done a lot of face-to-face before COVID hit, but then that changed. So they changed to virtual interviews. We didn't want to stop getting in front of businesses, uncovering their needs. We quickly rolled out a restaurant app to connect our local restaurateurs with food options through the pandemic, one of the first localities to put something like that together. And we started laying the groundwork for our resiliency grants. John was the one who made that effort possible when he came on, along with the support we received from the Chamber. John mentioned it, 58 businesses, $270,000 in grant funds. I will also say 54% of those were small women and minority-owned businesses. So a pretty cool story in itself. But the work hasn't stopped there. We developed a hiring app that connects local employers to people looking for work. That was actually picked up by News 12 to date. I think we're the only locality in the Commonwealth that has done that. We've also recently hosted a virtual job fair. So the work does not stop as we move from one fiscal year to the next. For those who follow State of the Hanover every year, you've heard me talk about we needed to change our marketing approach. We don't have big budgets like the larger localities in the Richmond region, so we have to work smarter. So what I wanted to do 2 years ago was to develop a marketing arm that was proactive and not reactive. You have prospects that call us on a regular basis, but we needed to be out telling our story. I'm not going to go through every one of these green boxes, but what we are doing is we're now driving traffic to our website. Most site searches today start online. It was 90% before the pandemic hit. I'm guessing it was 99.99% during the pandemic, but we're driving traffic there because when we have an announcement online, we're connecting the people that did the deal, the broker, the developer, the site consultant, because they have connections that we don't have. And people are seeing this globally. So we're driving the traffic to our website. We're making it easier to access our information. We've seen a tremendous uptick in our interest on our business sites page, where we have all of our major sites because we're doing drone videos, we're doing wetlands delineations, and we're doing studies. So this is actually driving people to see what product we have much more readily accessible. I will tell you, last year I told you that we developed an application through Google that people could translate our website. For years, we've been talking about that we market to international prospects, but people couldn't translate our website in other languages. So we're now starting to see the fruits of our labor. Last year, we had 97 countries visit our website. Those were the top 10. I jokingly say I saw South Korea on there. I'm glad North Korea wasn't looking at us. But I will say here's the markets outside of Virginia nationally as well that are checking us out. So at the end of the day, we have turned into a proactive economic development arm, and now we can track the data. Last but not least is our focus on agriculture and tourism. I will say this, we're 2 years away from the next agricultural census, but I can tell you that Hanover farms and agri-based businesses inject over $200 million a year into the local economy. There's over almost 600 working farms, and they hire thousands of people. We work very closely with Laura Maxney at the cooperative. She's been very supportive of our initiatives. This past year through COVID, we've been able to help at least 50 farms through the USDA Corona Food Assistance Program. We also helped one farm with our local resiliency grant program as well. We also market our agri-based companies. Destination tourism is a huge thing, and right now more than ever, people want to be outside and not cooped up inside. So we're marketing those assets that we have here in Hanover. And then last, I would like to focus on tourism. Our hotel tax revenues tracked by fiscal year, so through the end of June, were down about 20% through the pandemic. I thought this would actually be higher. And I suspect that next year, those revenues will probably be down 15 to 20% as well as we try to move out of the pandemic. Visitor expenditures, which is tracked by the Virginia Tourism Commission, we only get that report updated by calendar year. But I can surmise that with Kings Dominion being out of business, the information we get from calendar year 20 early in 21 is going to be down probably 30 to 40% because Kings Dominion was unable to open. I'm glad to hear them opening for Winterfest, but let me say, we've got to do everything we can to help them try to get open full time in 2021. They're a huge economic driver, not just for Hanover County, but for the region. John touched on it. I'm being conservative, but they have invested over $150 million in that facility over the last 10 to 15 years. And again, that's conservative. They didn't stop and develop Coconut Shores over the last year, obviously couldn't open, but that's a $6 million project in itself. That's an expansion project that keeps on giving, and we value their partnership. And then last, I will touch on the 2 new hotels that we added, True Hotel in the town of Ashland and Avid Hotel in Hanover. That will add 13.5% occupancy regarding beds to our offerings. Now, we understand that we're not out of the pandemic, but as Jack Berry and their team continue to drive events to the region, eventually those beds will be full again, and we will be able to take advantage of that from a revenue perspective. So in closing, I'm going to turn it back over to John, but a brief synopsis. Overall, the economy is consistently strong in Hanover, but what we want small businesses, existing businesses to know is we know they're hurting and we want to be a resource for them. So we encourage people to reach out to our department. We've got a great existing business manager. I'm happy to be a catalyst to make the right connections. We've got great resources in Hanover. So please utilize us moving forward. And I want to thank you and be happy to take questions when John's finished. And I'll pass the virtual mic back to Mr. Podesky. There you go.
Thank you, Lynwood.
Thank you.
I did want to take an opportunity. Lynwood touched on Kings Dominion and our relationship, and certainly we work very closely with Owen, and all of you know Owen and Tony, and the years of service Tony gave to Kings Dominion, this community, and the partnership. We wish Tony all the best in his retirement. I think he has a couple more days on the books and then gets to enjoy his retirement, but also like to welcome Bridget Bywater, who is coming in for Tony, to our business community. Looking forward to working with her and the team as we move forward. The other piece I'd like to mention is, we ended sort of on agriculture and tourism. Agriculture still is the top industry in Hanover County, and we certainly hope it will remain so in the future. Our plans really do, while we have growth plans in our suburban service areas, agriculture is in our plans intentionally protected. And we're trying to continue to support that industry in our community. So we are still always going to be at our heart a rural community, even though we have certain growth areas. And so we look to support them, look to do that through tourism and other ways in partnership with them. But at the heart of all of this, and it's always fun to talk about the new announcements and the industries that we're out there trying to attract. At the heart of it is those small businesses in our community that are doing this work each and every day, and doing so in partnership and being good corporate citizens with our community. And so all I could say is thank you. We are what we are because of the work we do together. We are who we are because of our partnership with the town. We are who we are because of all the volunteers and expertise and service that you give to our community. I will wrap up is one of the things that I'm proud of as a board, we're going to get together on December 1st and 2nd and really relook at our priorities. It's important for us to make sure we have a plan of where we're going so we can execute. We do that in the constraints of our budget. We do it based on the priorities of our residents and our business community, but looking forward to doing that work with them. We will celebrate our 300th. It's going to happen. Very proud. The local is going to be putting out, Tom, in the next week or two, a 300th celebration, part of their production. And as you heard us end, we're going to be focusing more and more on tourism. And sports tourism is one of the areas, while many other areas of tourism has been impacted, sports tourism actually has bolstered the economy and kept some of these hotels in production and going, and look forward to doing more and more in the sports tourism area. So if I can wrap up and just say, you know, we at the heart, we are based on our priorities and what we do for our residents. We're very proud of having some of the best schools in this area, one of the safest communities in this area, citizens that are engaged in all aspects of life throughout our community, lowest tax rate amongst any of the larger jurisdictions in the region. Our business community is really at the heart of sustaining all of this. And just thank you and thank our regional partners. I thank the Chamber, Hanover Chamber and RVA for the work that you do on behalf of those businesses. Your voice is heard. Your voice makes a difference. I thank you for welcoming me to the community in this capacity. I look forward to working with each of you, and thank you for your time. To our Zoomer friends at home, thank you for taking the time to log on this morning. I look forward to working with you as well, and just really appreciate all the efforts you do on behalf of our community. So thank you very much.
We've got some time for questions. If anybody has any, I will get you an answer, hopefully.
I have probably an easy one, and I just don't know the answer to it because I'm the one that asks the dumb questions normally. But I'm curious, the internet sales tax, how is that determined? I mean, is it from where it's ordered or from where it's delivered from, or how's that determined?
It is reported by companies like Amazon and others that have to do that online sales collections. It is tracked at the state level for all jurisdictions and then dispersed back out. When internet sales tax, for a while, we weren't collecting internet sales tax at all. And when federal laws had changed, they actually had sort of phased in when this had to be paid to different size jurisdictions throughout the nation. So it's actually been being phased in for a number of years. This just happened to be the first year Hanover received its collection.
Okay, and how's it generated though? Is it from, like, if I call from my home address, or is it coming from the distribution how is it calculated, I guess? That's what I'm asking.
It's from your IP ordering address. So it gets collected that way.
So if I want to have some friends over from Henrico and they order a lot of stuff from my computer, that helps us?
That's a great idea.
We encourage that. We encourage that.
Yeah. Okay, so
You were the 25.
Yeah.
And socially distanced.
Yeah, that's right. No, I was just curious.
Good question.
Mr. Podesta, Mr. Thomas, I want to thank you both for all of your good, hard work for the citizens of Hanover County. We've done a great job of attracting good businesses to Hanover. But with that, it's also important to keep the good businesses that we already have. So can you give us an update on Cascades and the paper?
Could you repeat the question so it can be heard through Zoom?
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll let John answer, and then I'll add anything else I can. The question was, we've done a good job of attracting new businesses and working with existing businesses here in Hanover. Can you give us an update on some of the major projects that we've been working on, specifically Cascade, which is the paper facility in Doswell that was announced 24 months ago?
And some of you may know Cascades, formerly as Bear Island. And So Cascades is actually a French-Canadian company that actually purchased the product up there. They're a little bit different from, as an operation, they focus more on the recycling pulp than the pulp side of things. They have moved that project forward. In fact, the CEOs are looking to relocate from Canada down here now, I saw Todd step out. They may need a house here soon, so I'm trying to encourage them and Bridget from Kings Dominion to buy a house here. But they are moving that investment forward. The county's been working with them. The governor's office and Secretary Ball, we're in touch with them almost weekly on that project right now. But it is moving forward. There's some permitting that has to occur that they're going through. We're making some improvements to a treatment plant to assist in that process. So we're working through those agreements. But they're now planning to make about a $400 million investment in that property.
A lot of times when you hear these announcements, they sound sexy, but there's so much work being done behind the scenes. It sometimes takes years to bring them to fruition. I know when John came on board, the project had somewhat been stalled, and he's been working overtime to try to help. We've been all working as a team, including Steve Herzog in Public Utilities, to try, and Frank Harkson, our Deputy County Administrator, to try to get the project across the finish line. And to John's point, I think they've green-lighted the project.
I want to ask, as I was headed that way anyway, about the sports tourism. My understanding from some in Chesterfield about River City Sportsplex is that while my understanding is that the county is coming in and bailing out a private investor's vision, that I've heard it referred to as the best investment Chesterfield's ever made. So what are we doing to either play off their success, a combined effort maybe, or are we doing our own thing here in Hanover?
Tag team this one a little bit. The question was, Chesterfield has focused on sports tourism and the River City Sports Complex down in Chesterfield off of 288 South down there. The county did go in. If you remember that was a huge vision a private developer had, and it didn't quite come to fruition. The county ended up going in and taking over that project in Chesterfield. Chesterfield has seen great success from taking over that project. It's spurred a great deal of subsidiary business and made solid investments in their hotel and retail industries, and they're seeing great returns from that investment. Likewise, you've seen Henrico make a great deal of investment up off of Woodman Road, and you've seen the announcements that are going into Virginia Center Commons for indoor. The larger jurisdictions has seen the benefits to their tax base from investments in sports tourism. We don't necessarily have the exact tax base that those two jurisdictions have, but we already do have some great amenities and some ways that are world-class that we can already leverage. But we also do have some plans for some additional park amenities in our community, both on western and eastern side. And we can leverage more of what we have and develop what we have in even better ways than we have in the past. I do think as we think about the parks that we're building, we're going to need to think about what can we see as a return on investment. We already are considered, when tournaments are coming here, Pole Green Park, Poor Farm Park, they're already leveraged almost to the max sometimes. So when these tournaments come in, they're not just focusing on River City. They really hit the whole array of amenities within the Richmond region. And we're a player in that. Our hotels benefit from it, and our existing fields are leveraged. But I think that we can do an even better job with that.
And just to expound upon that, we don't have to be Chesterfield and Henrico, but finding those specific niches. And we may have to invest a little bit of dollars because the return on investment is so significant. Economic development and sports tourism go hand in hand. Sports tourism does generate significant dollars, not only in the region, but in the Commonwealth. And I think we do need to look at some ways to invest in different ways, again, not being those other larger localities, to be competitive.
Good morning, Phil Englander with Hartman Son. Is one of your automotive dealers that obviously provides a large tax base to the county as well. I've got two questions. One, I'd like to see if there's something that the county would be interested in working with the automotive dealers to help grow awareness to the county that when they do purchase cars in the county, the tax dollars stay here versus Mechanicsville and surrounding city customers going to Henrico and other areas where those tax dollars don't stay within their county. So that's one area. Second thing is we're hearing a lot about properties that are zoned agricultural, people selling large plots. And is the county looking at rezoning those as high density residential, or are they going to try to remain those as agricultural and for single resident properties?
Let's take those in bites. The last question is the county out actively looking to rezone agricultural properties into residential? The absolute answer is no, the county's not out doing that. Does that mean a developer can't come in and ask for a rezoning or something that's consistent with our comprehensive land use plan? They can. There's certain restrictions on that. And I always tell folks the story that regardless of where you live, if you come in tomorrow and say, hey, I want to put a Burger King neighbor in my front yard, I have to allow you to go through the process. As absurd as it sounds in my subdivision to have him put a Burger King in his front yard, I have to let him. That doesn't mean we're out recruiting it. It doesn't mean that we're encouraging it. In fact, our land use plan protects substantially more land than it has for development. So we're not out doing that, but that doesn't preclude someone from a developer coming in and requesting those considerations. In fact, our comp plan is going through a revision here. In about a year, we're going to start reviewing our comp plan. That's a project actually all of you should be aware of and engaged in, both on the residential and commercial side. So that's going to be an important piece on that side of things. Want to take the other question?
Yeah, I mean, the question was for those who are watching virtually is how can our department or how can Hanover County help support the auto dealers that are in the county, drive awareness to the fact that when they purchase a car here, those tax revenues stay locally. And my only response to that is we'd love to work with you. We'd love to sit down and set up a time to meet where we can figure out maybe a marketing strategy to help you with that.
I would expand upon that is, certainly the auto industry is a key business in our community, but that goes to almost all industry in our community and retail in our community and small businesses in our community. I think our strategy certainly could be focused on, small business and Saturdays coming up. So let's start focusing on that, not on one day a year, but throughout the year. Not in all industries and sectors, what the investments that are made here benefit us in many ways. I talked about the sales tax earlier. That's going to help the transportation network in our public schools here. As people make those investments and stay here, that sustains and supports our local economy and our local businesses. So I think that message needs to be shared wide and louder in all sectors of our business community, service or retail. And so I think that is a message that we as a county can help champion and support, but that is a collective effort. And I think that's something Linwood and his team could do in partnership with the chamber, because that is definitely something we share.
We have a couple comments on the Zoom I'll share. A few came to me, said, welcome back, John. We're glad to have you back. Also, thank you, Linwood came up, and also Linwood, tell Angie, great job on the annual report. Help with the marketing pieces, honestly. And then another question came up, which was already answered about the internet taxes. So appreciate that. And those are the only comments I think that I need to share from the Zoom. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful and informative update. I am going to move on to some chamber announcements. We have chamber nights at Illuminate coming up. It's December 8th, 9th, and 10th. Don't miss out on this wonderful light show and an opportunity to support the Hanover Christmas Mother. So check out our website. It'll get you the link. It does have a deadline of the Monday, the 23rd. And that is a hard deadline because we got to get you your ticket. So that's, if you've never been out there, that's a great show. It's a good way to social distance and get a little bit of Christmas cheer. So consider doing that. And then our annual Giving Back Luncheon is November the 15th. We're going to hear from 3 area nonprofits that will share their passion, the purpose, and ways that you can be involved. But in light of the governor's recent mandate, that will be a virtual event, which I'm very sad about because we won't have the rolls from the camp, but we'll all survive. Oh, do you have events?
Yeah,
Sure.
just a couple of events and just one comment, but a couple of events that are coming up. Chamber RVA, you go to their website and look more, but they're constantly having events, and obviously right now everything is virtual. But they have a Hype and Chamber Women present RVA Women Rising and Responding. And that's an event program featuring a panel of dynamic women who are rising and responding to the unique challenges and opportunities within their community. It's really a great one. That is on this Thursday, 11 to 12. So it's only an hour virtually. And then also this Friday from 9 to 11, there's a shared value summit. It's session number 4. And I participated in one of the sessions previously, and it's really good. Great information there. But it's about regional leadership on economic mobility and inclusive growth. So just take advantage of those if you have some time and can look at those. And then lastly, also, and I don't know if you were going to close or I'm going to close, but either way. But obviously, I think everyone in this room and everyone virtually and everyone that lives in Hanover County knows what a unique place that we call home. We all call home here, and we're just so fortunate to have county leadership, town leadership, and certainly the leadership at the administration and the economic development that just keeps leading us there and keep us just really on track and just making our community from good to great and every single day. So I just want to thank everybody for that. And thanks for the presentation again this year. Thanks for everybody that virtually attended this year also. I just think it's a great event for everybody to be part of. So thank you guys. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.